You are listening to Woodland Walks, a podcast for the Woodland Trust, presented by Adam Shaw. We protect and plant trees for people to enjoy, to fight climate change and to help wildlife thrive.
Today I am meeting a well-known journalist and presenter who I've worked with for many years. We met on what I think was his first day at the BBC. Since then we presented Working Lunch together on BBC Two, and he has since presented, well, lots of stuff. The One Show, ITV's morning show, it was called Daybreak, ITV Sport, Match of the Day 2, and he now has his own Radio 5 live show, as well as writing a regular column for The Guardian. I met him, his dog Tito and his niece Loxy in a park in London to talk urban trees, nature and careers. Of course, trees aren't just in the country, and if you are looking for a tree walk specifically in London, do have a look at the Woodland Trust guide to that. You can find it online at woodlandtrust.org.uk/London Walks. That's woodlandtrust.org.uk/London Walks. Anyway, let's get to the meeting with Adrian and assorted friends. So, Adrian, we're in a park in central London.
We're in West London.
We're in West London.
The sirens will give that away.
Yeah. So the noises of London.
Yeah.
But I mean, normally we do these podcasts in, lush green bits of the UK.
Yeah.
But actually, most people live in towns, don't they, in cities? So I suppose
exactly.
Trees in cities are actually perhaps, arguably more important for people.
Well, I come from Birmingham, as you know, and I think we are the most, we're the greenest city in Europe. I think certainly in the country we've got, I think it's something like 1 million trees, and we're a population of 1 million. So I think there's one per person, which is. But I didn't actually realise this until I had a meeting at a place called Fort Dunlop, which is the old Dunlop tyre factory right by the M6, which anyone who's driven past Birmingham will see. And we had this meeting. It was for some local quango. And it was on the top floor of this place, so you got a view all over Birmingham. And I just suddenly occurred to all I could see was green, and I just thought, what a magical thing this was. And I just love trees. Where I grew up, there was a big chestnut tree just out the back, which is still there from my parents' house. And I just every morning used to look at it and just see where it was in the seasons, and then I don't know, I love trees and I love being out in deserted woodlands, don't get me wrong, but I think, the smaller, the less celebrated urban parks are just, a massive thing for this country that we just take for granted. And I just walk around them in wonder. Wherever I go in the country, I find the local park and go for a walk, and I just think all life is there.
Have you always been like that? I mean, you're a city boy. You grew up.
Well, no, I'm sort of half city, half country. I'm from a place called Hagley, which was a village outside Birmingham, and it is,
it's
separated by green belt. Well, it's separated from Birmingham by green belt. It's where it's sort of where Brummies went, who'd done well for themselves, and people from the Black Country as well. They'd go to Hagley, and there it's right on the edge of the Black Country, but it is also right on the doorstep of Worcestershire. The Clent Hills and are right above Hagley, which is just amazing. I mean, you look west from there all over the Midlands and over to Wales, and then you look east, you see Birmingham, and actually the next highest point is in the Urals from there, right, as you look east from there, so when it's blowing from the east, it's really flipping cold.
But I don't remember you. I mean, it's this feeling about nature.
Well, I think old age sort of it sends you on your way like that. But I was lucky because all the time we were working together, I lived very near Hyde Park, so I always had that on my doorstep.
But you always talked about West Brom, not about trees.
No, that's true. But I mean, like trees are better for you than West Brom. West Brom can always let you down. Trees generally don't let you down. They're sort of, they can be relied upon. Right. And I just, I became, technology has helped me a lot with it. I resolved to start knowing what each tree was.
Yeah.
I mean, I can identify a certain footballer from 100 yards, you know, so I should be able to identify the trees.
Are you any good? Can you see what's
Well,
around?
there was an app I had. I went for a walk across Europe on this pilgrimage, where this program we went from Belgrade to Istanbul.
This was you don't metaphorically mean a pilgrimage.
Yeah,
This
it
was
was,
a
it was.
religious
It was a
pilgrimage.
religious pilgrimage, yeah, for a TV program, and I had an app then. But the trouble is, you know, to the despair of the people I was on this pilgrimage with, on nearly every occasion, it told me the tree was a monkey puzzle.
A monkey puzzle, but that's like a mad tree.
Which is, ironically, the only tree I'd ever definitely be able to identify for myself without, or possibly willow tree as well, without the help of an app. But I see technology has moved on, and I've now got an app on my phone. It tells me where I am.
Do you get out much now? I mean, you're still doing your daily. It's a daily radio.
Well, I do. Yeah, I do. Well, I do Thursdays and Fridays, and then I write a lot. But every day, I'm in open space or urban open space every day, and whenever I can, I get out of London and just go and go out to the countryside, middle of nowhere. I go to South Wales a lot. I go to the Midlands a lot. Even just outside London, there's some really great woodland to go in. But I mean, this, you know, the urban park sort of just sort of spare me from London, really. Just a bit of relief. It's interesting. A friend of mine's blind. He works for guide dogs, actually, for the charity, and he's also.
I thought you meant the charity, not that his boss was a dog.
No. Yeah. But he's on about his 6th guide dog now. He's in his 60s, and he said to me, he said that guide dogs, he's just lost his, actually just died, his last guide dog. But he said to me that they expect to get a year or two less out of guide dogs in London than they would elsewhere, because they just get worn out. It's just too intense. But I'm starting to think it's like that for people as well. I found that during lockdown, that I just quite enjoyed, you know, the intensity just being taken away, the options. I think we're all overstimulated, you know, in London, and it's, you know, I really feel that now things are getting back to normal. I just more and more, I just need to be out of it completely. And for my dog, I just got with startling unoriginality, got a lockdown dog, and it seems to take him to Wales, run in the middle of nowhere. And I mean, he loves it, he runs around and all that. But there's a fair amount of running around in London. But I noticed when I bring him back and take him to the park, actually, you know, like probably 1,000 dogs have been in that park in the previous 48 hours. And he can smell them all. I mean, you can see it makes him sort of frantic, you know. So there's too many smells,
here he
aren't
is.
there? Here's Tito.
Hello.
Too many smells.
Hello, Tito.
Tito, say hello. That's not him, that's me.
That's very good.
Yeah. There you go. Have a treat.
Friendly, very friendly.
We've got these tiny little treats, right?
Yes.
Just listen to them. Look, it's less than a centimetre in length,
Yes.
shaped by a little bone.
Yeah.
And listen to the well, he makes a right meal out of it. Listen to the crunchy now. It's like he's chewing on a whole cow's shin or something.
Well, what about the environmental debate which goes on? You know, are you optimistic or pessimistic about it all?
I'm insanely pessimistic, I think, because I just
More because you tend to that anyway. Is that fair to say?
I tend to pessimism, but I just don't think. Without immediate consequences of that people can see to climate change. And I don't mean just seeing some chart the temperature's gone up 1 degree.
Yeah.
Unless people's houses start falling down, or planes start dropping out of the sky, or, you know, all of Miami goes underwater. Until we start seeing that, I can't see people's minds being focused. And it's just so big, it terrifies me. You know, no one ever seems to say, look, we're all going to have to take a hit on this. We're all going to have to pay more for stuff, or travel less, or we're all going to have to be seriously inconvenienced to tackle this problem. There was a good example last week, actually, after, I can't remember what the story was, but there was something about, there was a big sort of climate crisis sort of news story. And the following day, the Guardian's headline was, "Crisis is imminent, it's terrible." And then the Times headline was, "Green policy means we all face higher bills." Now, somebody tweeted that out as well, you know, just shows you the Times priorities. Now, I agree with both front pages, but at least the Times was being straight up about the cost to it. I mean, what it also needs to say, look, we're just going to have to pay this. I don't think it said that, but you know, we're just going to have to embrace this fact.
It's funny, on the way here, I remember one of the stories.
Yeah.
I remember about your mum. You telling me about your mum, because I was, you know, it was great. I met both the parents. You were saying one of the big arguments of your childhood, you remember, is going to an
Arboretum.
Arboretum.
Blimey, well remembered.
And you want to just tell me that, because it just we
were taken. I think I was about 13 and my brother was 10, and we were taken to Western Burt Arboretum, which I since learnt is one of the, you know, the great tree lovers' destinations of the world. And we were going there to see the winter colours and the autumn colours. And when we got there, went to this hotel, me and my brother and I did nothing but moan. What are we doing here? I don't like it. Trees are boring. I just think, and then they really, after we stayed one night, and then they basically said, "Oh, we've had enough of this. Sorry, let's go home." I remember Nan saying, "You must be mad, completely mad." And she never really spoke to me like that, my Nan. And I just thought, it's really been on my mind since, because now I can think of nothing better.
Right.
Than going there. Maybe actually not in the autumn when it's there's a queue 200 miles long to get in. But yeah.
But it meant something to your mum, didn't it? She was very upset that you had to go.
But then again, look, we're two red-blooded, football-loving teenagers. I mean, we're not
white. No, but that's the point of it. I wonder whether you feel now the youth is different, or whether whether two teenagers would go, yeah, all right, maybe it's not my most favourite thing to be here, maybe it is, but I get it in a way that you didn't. Do you think times might have changed?
Well, that's a good point. I think people would be thinking about the future. Yes, I think in the sense they worry about the planet. I can get that. I think, but I can't, I think kids generally won't be buzzing with excitement about having a gentle time in the countryside.
Yeah. Except it doesn't just have to be a gentle walk. I mean, you can climb trees, they're quite exciting. The younger kids can make, stories about them and stuff. It doesn't have to be a sort of gentle, middle-aged ramble.
That horse chestnut tree I mentioned right behind
your parents' house.
Right behind my parents' house. I remember I was always too frightened to climb that. I had terrible vertigo when I was a kid.
On heights, right?
No. So I remember being, this Dan, the lad down the road, was a bit of a hero of mine. I remember I got up to a tree, I got onto the first branch and started shaking. He said, "Well, you've got problems because you could grow that tall yourself. So, I mean, are you going to be frightened if you get to be 6 foot tall?" And, I am 6 foot tall and I'm not particularly frightened. But actually, last year I was at my parents' place and I just wandered out to that tree and I just climbed it.
Right.
I got covered in sort of green moss and stuff, but I didn't go all the way to the top, but I thought I slayed that ghost, and it doesn't frighten me so much anymore.
Because I remember we covered one of the final flights of Concorde, and you don't like flying, do you? On the flight you were holding the woman's hand next to you. You were scared, but you've conquered all of that now.
I did. Just one day I remember I must have been suffering from depression. There was a bit of a crisis in my life going on. I was in the papers the whole time. I remember exactly the flight. It was coming back from the 2008 Euros where I was based in Vienna. And there'd been something horrible about me in the papers or something. I was just getting divorced. And I remember I was sitting next to an ex-footballer called Mark Lawrenson. I remember reading this in the Daily Mail, which he was looking at. And I just remember the plane did the kind of a jolt down. And it was the kind of movement which would have terrified me before, but now I just thought, oh, sod it, take me, I don't mind.
Right.
And actually from that, look, I don't go around hoping to die anymore. But from that moment on, it just never bothered me.
Right.
I just haven't had a moment since. It's weird that, isn't it? I haven't given it a second thought. Just get on the flight, fall asleep and get off the other end.
I want to talk about some other things, but you were talking about, youth, you when you were young and now, but you've brought your niece along with you.
Yeah, I have.
Well.
Her name's Loxie. Loxie, what are you doing? Come here. Come here at once.
Don't let him talk to you like that.
Yeah, this is my niece, Loxie, and I love her very much because she's much nicer to me than my own children. I get much more respect from her. And you live in the country, don't you, Lox?
I live in the middle of the Cotswolds, yeah.
Yeah.
Adrian was telling me, about when he was young,
Yeah.
engaging with trees,
Yeah.
and how it was a bit boring. And I could actually see you in the background. And I said, do you think it's changed? And you were actually nodding. You were
Yes.
too polite to interrupt.
Oh,
But
I
you
don't-
were definitely had a view. So tell me what your view is now about sort of younger people and their engagement with the natural world.
Well, I'm 16 and I absolutely love nature, everything nature. I'd much rather be in my home village, which is tiny, walking around, going on a bike ride, socialising with my friends that way. And I think
Yeah, this is
COVID
rubbish, by the way. She wants to be a pop star and live in an
true.
urban jungle like
That's
Los
so not
Angeles
true. That's
and go
so
to
not
bars
true.
with rappers
That's
until
so
5 in the
not
morning. You don't
true.
care about trees.
Oh, I really do.
You can do that. You can be a rapper, pop star,
Don't
and
wanna be a
still.
rapper.
That way you can afford to buy huge.
A forest.
A forest.
No, I honestly, you're wrong. I actually do love nature. I'm massive. You ask my parents, I'm always out. I have a dog. I have a Springer Spaniel, so he has to be walked all the time. And I always volunteer. I find it so calming and so peaceful, and I enjoy identifying different trees, different plants, everything, and I love it.
And do you think how common do you think that is amongst your friends?
I think it depends where people are from. So I'm from the middle of the countryside. So within us, within my circle of friends, I feel it's quite common. We all like a bit of nature, I feel, but I think I'm slightly more than them. They like to be inside quite a lot, and I don't really like being inside on my phone. I much prefer being outside.
Okay, can I ask you a question? You go, so the school he goes to is a state school in Bourton on the Water.
No,
Bourton, in Bourton.
Bourton on the Water.
Bourton on the Water, yeah. And it's
Doesn't show a huge interest in you.
No, I do.
No,
No,
I
I've
know.
been there. I just get
Got
mixed
the-
up.
the name wrong.
But so those kids there, I mean, do they tend to go out at the weekend and lie around admiring the natural world, or do they not think, oh, I'm bored, I'd rather be in the, well, let's go to Oxford, let's go to Cheltenham, or let's get on the train to London?
I think it's a definite mixture. I mean, I think as a school, because we are in the middle of the countryside, there is a lot of lying by the river. In Bourton, there's a beautiful river, and it's a massive tourist attraction, and a lot of people go there. But there is definitely an aspect of, get the train from Kingham to Oxford very easily, and so a lot of people go into Oxford or Cheltenham.
What tree is this then? You're so clever and you love nature so much.
It's a chestnut tree.
All right, very good.
Very good, well done.
Very good.
Yeah, you're
Pass
very
the
good.
test.
Yeah, pass. To be honest, it's radio. You could say anything at all, and I will confirm that as being correct.
Okay.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, we were talking about whether people our age were optimistic or pessimistic about the environment
Yes.
in the future. Adrian wasn't
He's
too optimistic.
pessimistic.
He was a bit pessimistic. Not just your view,
Yeah.
but your friend's view. You speaking on behalf of all youth.
Oh, that's hard because I'm such an optimistic person, I feel. So I'm 100% anything. I think, in my opinion, you have to view the world in the most positive way.
Okay, which is a nice thing to say, but truly, what you're hearing is, the environment is a bit out of control. It feels
Yeah.
temperatures are rising.
Yeah.
What is the justification for you being optimistic, apart from wanting to be generally a nice person?
I think for me and for my friends, there's a definite mixture. I think there is always an aspect of pessimistic when you have a pessimistic view, because obviously it's not good, it's not going well. But there's always people like Greta Thunberg and people who will speak out, and I feel that over time, hopefully there will be a positive change, and we're definitely going in the right direction, not at the right speed or anyway on a scale that we
So
should
what
be going.
sacrifices would you make if you said, look, you can't travel abroad anymore, you just...
I think that it's not cutting it out completely. I think it's about reduction and also changing the way you travel. So instead of always flying places, trying to get trains, use public transport.
So if you went on your summer holiday but had to spend half the time getting there,
Yeah.
that would be okay?
I think so. I think that everyone has to make small sacrifices, and if that's the sacrifice I have to make.
But what about
then
the clothes you buy? That looks suspiciously like fast fashion.
I
That
am
t-shirt
a
you're wearing.
bit of a. To be honest, I went through a bit of a stage of being a bit buying into that a lot, but I know that it's hard where I live because there's not stuff. You don't have second-hand shops, you don't have vintage shops, whatever. So when it comes to buying clothes, it's much more difficult because you haven't got as much in access to you. But I feel that when hopefully I'm older and I have more of that, and I have my own bank account and my own money, then that will be easier.
Yeah, and you live in an urban environment, running your rapper career.
I'm not going to be a rapper. I do not want to be a rapper.
You don't want to be a rapper.
I want to be a singer-songwriter.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow. Have you got any of your own stuff?
I do. I actually have a song out.
You've got a song out?
I do. Spotify and Apple Music. It's on.
Okay, go on, give us a plug for it.
It's called Broken Butterflies.
It's called I Love Trees.
No,
It's called. Don't ruin the plug, Adrian. Right, it's called
Broken Butterflies.
Stop,
We're all talking over you.
That's a horse chestnut.
Stop. It's called Broken Butterflies. There is a music video as well on YouTube. My name's Loxie, Loxie. And you can look up. I would not suggest looking at the music video. That is slightly embarrassing. I suggest going and streaming it on Spotify and Apple Music.
Best not to say I wouldn't have a look at this video. It's very embarrassing.
It's
Which is
very
clearly the first thing now everyone is going to do.
You hurt me and you use me, you kill me and abuse, you make me feel so small, like I'm not really significant at all. I know it's hard to see, we aren't meant to be, you like to hurt me.
Back around Grandad's house?
Yeah.
And in the side bit, the veranda, there's an old fridge.
Yes.
Well, that is known as Adam's fridge because that
Really?
used to belong to Adam, and he wanted to get rid of it. And I collected it at his place in London, and me and a mate drove it up to
There's going to be
Hagley.
some old stuff in that fridge.
Yeah. Still going strong.
Centuries old.
I think it's got. I was working with another producer who went to that house. It was when I was talking to Adrian, and Adrian beckoned me over, and all the other producers were very jealous. Well, you're getting to talk to Adrian. He went, "I've got to show you this fridge." And there was a picture of me and a magnet of working lunch on it.
That's right, yeah.
So that's
Look at
still maybe
that.
that. So anyway, good.
amazing.
Right, okay. Which way should we head off? Loxie?
Okay.
This way?
This way. All right, brilliant.
Find some trees.
We have known each other for quite. I was going to say before I had hair, but that's not true. I'd already.
That was
lost it.
1992 I first met you, so 02, 12, 30, so it's 30 years next year. Next March it'll be 30 years. Christ, that's 30.
It was an amazing time. I thought an amazing time in the newsroom, an amazing time for you because your career really took off, didn't it? You sort of started as working. You had a job on the Birmingham Post.
Yeah, I had
was
a
it,
job
or?
on the Birmingham Post, which I never went to in the end because I got this work experience at the BBC in the same department as you and our late and much missed boss Paul Gibbs had he sort of took a shine to me and he kept me on there. But you always take your first job slightly for granted after a while. I think I didn't realise how brilliant everybody was there, sort of you included. When we were doing working lunch for all those years, because I didn't know any different, I didn't realise how brilliant everybody was. I knew we all got on each other's wicks and fell out from time to time, but we were producing something quite original, and they were some of the best journalists I've ever worked with. On there. Yourself, a guy called Nick Wood, Simon Gompertz, I just thought was brilliant. John Moylan. I don't think any of them went on to have the careers they deserved at the BBC. Actually, I suppose I was the only one, who did sort of really well on from that. And I feel a bit of a fraud because I definitely wasn't as good as them.
I think what was special about it, I have to say, it was not so much the journalism, but something that I've not seen anywhere else was giving people their head. That basically we would rock up at 8, 12:30 we were on. And I remember going down to the BBC props room and going, I'll pick a prop. I'll pick a prop and then build a story. I go, it's fine, I'll work out a way around this. And there was no time for producers to have control of you, so they just had to go with it. And I remember you saying something to me which always stuck with me. We would have great fun on the programme, and you go, we sort of earned that license to have fun because because underneath it all, this is running smoothly. We're saying important stuff, and you can have fun with that. The moment it goes wrong, you would go, no messing around it, because we've now got to re-establish the fact that actually we can do this.
I just think if we'd cocked something up at the beginning of the programme, something had gone down. I just think, as I said, I think you earned the right to mess about.
But I don't think, you see, And I remember when we came under the spotlight of management, it was a disaster, because actually people would come, I remember a very intellectual boss of ours came down and justified, well, I wasn't going to mention it, okay, but he justified the fish coming through the title sequence, and he was talking about defenestration and the theoretical, and we went, well, no, really, the reason we've got a fish is because the graphic designer has a fish, and that was the reason we've got a fish. And that was a death knell, actually, I felt, because you have to trust people and just let them do what they want. Now, I've never worked on another program like that. Have you?
Probably the one show, in a sense. We sort of felt we had the freedom to do what we want once we made it very successful, because then people stopped telling us what to do and let us get on with it for a short period of time, but then very quickly it then becomes a big success, so everybody wants a part of it. A new controller comes in who, because it's the idea of the last controller, thinks, well, I can't claim credit for it, so I'm going to have to change it, and then it just gets, it's just working lunch. Nobody really cared about us for a long time, which really, gave us the freedom.
I think that's undervalued. You go, that ability to go, you're not too important to everyone, so you're allowed to get on with it. When you become too important, actually, too many people get involved.
Most
of the programs you work for are quite high profile.
Well, I went on to be extremely high profile. I mean, covering the football, one false word, one false move, and the whole world comes down on you. It's just hard.
Well, also the ITV's morning show.
I mean, that was, but that was a disaster for me. It didn't work out. I mean, which is still obviously a source of regret. But I did find my central problem is I'm just not very good in the mornings. I like being up in the mornings. But I want to be drinking coffee, reading the paper. I don't want to be talking to anybody, which is a calamitous character trait in somebody trying to present a breakfast show.
Did this ever come up in the discussion stages that you're not good in the mornings?
Well, apparently it did, because my partner works with somebody who worked for ITV at the time. He says he remembers having a conversation with me saying, I don't really like mornings, which I said without irony. I just said it.
Okay, very good. I mean, I remember when we started, newsrooms were very stereotypical. They were you used to go drinking. I mean, I remember I used to present the BBC One breakfast, so we start at 3:30 in the morning, finish at 9, and wine was delivered at the debrief meeting at 9:30. And our boss used to take us out drinking in the morning.
I'm just writing a book called How to Drink Less, and in there is, and I was reflecting on those times in there, just how much it was about drinking and how bonding the drinking, the drinking was. And I always felt you were always quite a moderate drinker.
Well, I'm a cheap date. I mean, 2 pints and I'm done, really.
But I've always felt the need. I really want to be his friend, but it didn't feel as if I'd achieved that till we'd gone out and got absolutely plastered together. I remember exactly where it was. It was that pub called the Castle, which is on Holland Park Avenue.
Right.
I remember we were in there all afternoon and got smashed, and we left there about 10 o'clock, and we were all getting all upset, talking about intimate things happened to us and our families. And I just thought, and looking back, it's been quite, it ended up being a bit of a memoir, because you can't talk, because drinking was my life. Not in a, it was just a key part of my life, completely. You can only tell the story of my life through drinking. And I can't tell the story of my drinking without talking about my life, which I think it just felt wrong. It was a bit upsetting. But every those long afternoons, we'd finish at 1, and then we'd go to my mate's place, Darko, the Croatian guy, and oh God, we'd be in there 5-6 hours. It was all the data says that fewer of our kids' age group, late teens, early 20s, that fewer of them are drinking now, which you've got to go with the data.
Just trying to step back from everything. I mean, you have had and are having an amazing career.
Well, but I mean, I rose sort of very high, and I got high-profile jobs, presenting the football on ITV and so on. Then suddenly it was all taken away from me. I mean, I did live TV every day for 20 years. And from about 1994 to 2014, I did it every day for 20 years until 2014. And I literally now, I have not done any live telly. I have not had an earpiece in for 7 years. I used to put an earpiece in every day. And then I just suddenly it stopped. You know, and I was lucky, I still had work. I find the radio work fulfilling. And also writing I find really challenging and fulfilling, you know, writing for The Guardian and The Sun and whoever else would have me. But, you know, it's just, you know, you don't, when you get to a certain level of success, you think in some form it's going to be there forever, but it just went like that. You know?
But emotionally, that must be, I mean, we've all had ups and downs, but you've certainly been at your peak, much more successful than my peak. And therefore the fall presumably is more dramatic. I just wonder how you emotionally cope with that. Or do you mind talking about that?
No, at all, no. I mean, I remember speaking to a doctor at the time. She said, you know, because I suffered from depression and anxiety and stuff for many years before that. Actually, the more successful I got, the more depressed I got. And I can't really work out why. You start, I don't know, is it solipsism, when you just think you're the centre of the universe and you think, you know, everybody's looking at me as a failure, when in fact most people, even if they were looking at me, they weren't thinking about me, they just didn't have a view on me. And to this day, people will say, oh, why don't you want to tell me anymore? I mean, I must get it 20 times a day.
How difficult do you find that?
I sort of got used to it, and I just sort of laugh it off. You know, but when we started doing Working Lunch, I was also working on radio, and I went to the Sony Radio Awards. And there, Steve Wright, the broadcaster, came up to me, and I was, you know, I revered him for years, listened to him all my childhood. And he said, and I was just chuffed that he knew who I was, and he said he watched Working Lunch, and he goes, and we chatted for a bit, and then he said, oh, you'd be very nice, you're just off air, you know, in real life, you're just like you are on air. And I went, oh, all right, yeah, I suppose so. And he goes, it's very good, very nice. I went, right. And he goes, but in the end, you'll go completely mad. And I went, all right, and not knowing what he's talking about. And as I've said to him since, you know, 15 years later, I was on his show, and I said to him then, you were absolutely right. I knew what you meant in the end. I knew what you meant. And it's partly because if you are yourself, you've got nowhere to hide when people don't like you, when there's a Twitter mob after you, when somebody, you know, then I can't say it's my persona. You know, it is absolutely, you know, it's absolutely what I am. So it just made it sort of harder to deal with. I mean, to this day, I still love. Well, actually, I mean, the best way of explaining it, I remember it came back to me, a documentary about Bros, not the recent one, but one about 10 years ago. And it sticks in my mind. And one of them said, I remember this quote, he said, being famous is great. Being famous but being skint is a nightmare. Now, I never got to be skint, but I would slightly adjust that and misquote them, said being famous and successful is great. Being famous without being successful suddenly is awful, really. Because even if people don't treat you as if you're unsuccessful, even if they don't say you're, you know, you used to be on television, you know, you still feel unsuccessful. You're still unsuccessful yourself. And also, it was put. A friend of mine who he was head of comms at West Brom for a long time, and then he left there. And I remember him putting it very well. He said, you know, you've got a similar problem on a bigger scale, he said, to what I have. He says that you're defined by what you used to do. Right, and that, I mean, we all get to that in the end. You know, when you're in your 70s, I mean, even Michael Caine must feel like that in a way. But, you know, you're defined by what you used to do, what you used to be, then that is quite hard. That's quite hard to take.
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't designed it this way, but I mean, we've gone around the houses a bit, but we've come to this sort of mental health issue, and you were talking about how much you like getting outside.
Yeah.
Do you see a connection there?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, yeah, just. I mean, I became a Catholic after the. I sort of nominally I was a Protestant. I was, an Anglican, in the Church of England. Then, but I started going to church and I became a Catholic. I took my first communion when I was 40, and I always remember I went to see this old priest. It was like meeting God. I didn't know what I was doing, but at that stage, if he'd said the wrong thing to me, if he'd been sitting in judgment on me or whatever, but he was just so lovely. He said I was busy revising the sacraments and, when to stand up and kneel and all this. And he said, forget about all that. He said, it's mostly superstition, that stuff. And he said, all you got to do is be still. He said, just be still and the truth will come to you. Peace will come to you. So, that's the way of achieving stillness.
Do you think, my suspicion
Yeah.
is that your conversion to Catholicism
Yeah.
was a lot about death and what happens after death.
Yeah. Well.
And I wonder whether the connection with trees, which are long-living things, the embodiment of stability and living beyond us, whether that's the thing that appeals, or have I got that completely wrong?
It wasn't about life after death, but it was just about. I just felt peace when I felt at home in Catholic churches. I mean, with trees, yes, you're right. They're here before us. They're here after. I don't really.
But that's not.
I don't really think about it. No, I don't. I mean, now you mention it. Yes, I think there is that level of continuity. I went to the Flanders Field Museum in Ypres. Have you been there? No. The battery. And there's an exhibit in there which really stopped me in my tracks, and it's a section of a huge oak tree. And on the rings, it's scarred on the rings from 1914 to 1980, and or maybe not. No, it's 1914 to 18. It's scarred on those 4 years. And that really made a big impression on me, this magnificent thing, but that World War had scarred it like that section of that tree. I just stood staring at it. I stood staring at it for ages, but it lived on, it had only just died, which is why that section of it was in that museum.
Well, I'll let Loxy's music play us out here. Thanks to Adrian, his niece, Loxy and his dog Tito. And do remember that Woodland Trust website, which is a guide to tree walks in London. It is woodlandtrust.org.uk/London walks. woodlandtrust.org.uk/London walks. Until next time, take care.
We aren't meant to be like to hurt me all the time. 3 years, 2 months, I still miss your first glance on a Friday night. I fell in love with your freckles and your big.
Thank you for listening to the Woodland Trust Woodland Walks. Join us next month when Adam will be taking another walk in the company of Woodland Trust staff, partners and volunteers. And don't forget to subscribe to the series on iTunes or wherever you're listening to us, and do give us a review and a rating. And why not send us a recording of your favourite woodland walk to be included in a future podcast? Keep it to a maximum of 5 minutes, and please tell us what makes your woodland walk special. Or send us an email with details of your favourite walk and what makes it special to you. Send any audio files to podcast@woodlandtrust.org.uk, and we look forward to hearing from you.